Can y'all see our PowerPoint? Yeah. So, hi y'all. Good afternoon or morning for some people. Um, so me and Ashley, we did our presentation over John Dewey. Dewey. I say Dewey. John Dewey. Um,
Dewey, yes.
okay.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name's Ashley. So John Dewey was born in October 20th in 1859 in Burlington, Vermont, and then he died June the 1st, 1952 in New York. Some highlights from his life. He graduated from the University of Vermont in 1879. He received his doctorates from Johns Hopkins in 1884. And shortly after he graduated from his doctorates, he was hired as an assistant professor where he taught philosophy and psychology. Um, in 1868, and I'm sorry, in 1986, he married Alice, and they had 6 children, and then they adopted one. He started a experimental primary school with his wife, and they called it the University Elementary School. There, he wanted to test all of his like academic theories, and by the end of it, his wife was fired and he resigned. Over his lifetime, he published over 1,000 works, including essays, articles, and books.
So, what is Dewey's theory? His theory, um, for him, he called it the theory of pragmatism. I can never say the word.
Pragmatism.
It's the P. It's hard for me to say my P sometimes. But the theory of pragmatism. So pretty much it's the thinking or dealing. It's the thinking or dealing with problems in practical ways, and so that's where Dewey argued that curriculum should be relative, related,
Relevant.
relevant. It should be relevant to student lives. So, in other words, he saw learning as doing and development of practical life skills crucial to children's education. Um, Dewey used 4 principles to explain his theory. He used unity, interest, experience, and integration. With those, critics had critics critics had expressed their opinion that his views were more confusing than clarifying, and they appear I did more uh, they appear to be more idealism than naturalism, and that's where some assume that students will fail to acquire basic academic skills and knowledge through his theory, but also believe that teachers will lose authority in the classroom throughout time. Uh, Dewey's theory is actually a part of modern days. It's a part of the modern day educational system, not just here in the United States, but also worldwide. It's not fully used, but it is expressed in some classrooms. They use this theory a little bit more than most.
In class today, progressivism in current schools is you mainly see it is as in art rooms, kitchens, which is like when when like especially like for pre-Ks when they have like little kitchen play. They have science laboratories, basically anything that requires on like not online, hands-on learning. Some qualities that are seen in a progressive school. Um, one big one is that they don't always give report cards. They rather do reports on details on how well the child is doing socially. Um, they also encourage cooperation and over competition. And it's all about thinking and exploring in your own way instead of the teacher telling you, do this, do that. They are free to explore however they want to. So here are the pros and cons. Um, the pros are that the students get to be active participants of their own learning. They get to learn by experiencing and doing things hands-on. And I feel like that is a lot of us now. It promotes children working together. Students think more critically and problem solving. It takes the stress off of kids on report card grades and tests and all the standards. And it promotes creative and imagination. Now, some cons could be that they don't prepare students for tests that are required as of like now, like STAR. There's a lot of pressure for the kids, and this won't fit into today's society. Um, it is nearly impossible to give a student. There's someone in the waiting room. Um, it's really hard to give students individual attention, which may cause the student to not learn as much.
So we have a video. It's to explain the four principles a little bit more better for you guys.
There are only a few ideas that had as much of an impact on education as those of John Dewey. To understand his ideas, let's imagine Dewey reappears in the modern world with the mission to implement his theories in a conservative school. Dewey championed learning by doing, also known as experiential learning. He observed that children learn better when they are actively engaged because they are immersed in the present and not a distant future, such as final exams. In biology, students don't read books, but instead grow plants, harvest fruits, and then feed them to snails to see what happens. Sometimes things work out, sometimes accidents happen. Whatever the outcome, the students take notes of their observations and form rich, memorable experiences. At the end of each class, they summarize their learning and turn to discussions. The discussions prepare the students for life in a democratic society where decisions ought to be based on reasonable arguments. Through the debates, the children learn to formulate their own ideas, convince others, and learn to see the world from a different point of view. In one discussion, some started to argue that school uniforms limit self-expression and that they should be abolished. Dewey, who believed that schools should prepare children for life itself and serve society as a force for innovation and reform, encouraged those students to start a petition to find out for themselves if real social change is possible. Classes are interactive because Dewey believes that interaction with the environment is essential for the learning process, since education is an experience that is subject to constant change. Passive recipients of knowledge, on the other hand, learn very little, if anything at all. The group who started the petition present their ideas to the teacher and start a dialogue that expands their understanding and underlines their learning. Learning is interdisciplinary. Dewey believed that continuity is critical to comprehension and that an interdisciplinary education allows students to build on what they already know, which strengthens their understanding. What they observed in biology is being calculated in math, written about in English, and put into images through the arts. This provides the students the opportunity to learn how things are connected. To the brain, this process is more effective because it can link new knowledge with previous experiences and build stronger mental models. Do we believe that when societies calculate the price of education, they shouldn't only look at the cost of school buildings, teachers' salaries, and other resources? They should also consider the costs of all the hours input by the children. Because the children are the future of our society and human progress, their time in class ought not to be wasted. It is thus the school's responsibility to be a playground to practice a future we wish to see. So when the kids grow up, they can go and create it. About education, Dewey famously said, "It's not a preparation for life, education is life itself." The group that sought dress code reform gained a deeper knowledge about the topic and were able to develop good arguments. They printed their demands on banners and tracts and discussed their ideas with everyone until the day the majority of students and teachers had signed their petition. Eventually, the petition was presented to the principal and a new school rule was passed. Dewey's ideas were not always popular during his time, and while we made some progress in education over the last 100 years, is the situation really any better today? What do you think? Did you experience learning by doing in your school? And does your school encourage you and your friends to engage in social reform and create the future we wish to see?
Oh, it cut off like that. But in this video, it
There
really.
are only a few ideas.
I think that's why. So in this video, it really did ask a really good question that I thought that in anybody in class that would like to speak on. The question was, did you experience learning by doing in your school, and does your school encourage you and your friends to engage in social reform and create the future we wish to see? So, like me personally, I don't think I remember kindergarten. I always say kindergarten because I remember we was able to like color and like just be free and just do everything. But it wasn't until like second grade where like I remember like I always tell people during the Pledge of Allegiance, they used to say during not the moment of silence, but it was like a time for people to pray. And during that time they literally say prayer and everything. But when I got to like second grade, they completely cut it out where they just say a moment of silence. So that's where I start noticing a lot of schools been changing, and it's more and more about, hey, you have to do this, you have to like take this test, and it was the freedom like lost from after first grade or in kindergarten. So, but that was like in '98 when I went to like kindergarten and stuff. So like, but it was I just felt like I don't know if anybody else's experience was different like that, but I feel like learning by doing, it was really more younger age, but I feel like we missed it in the upper ages from like second and third where the testing is more important. But then like Dewey's theory is pretty much they all connect in different they all come they all connect at the end. And with that way there's a better effect on them. And I like, Ashley, you want to say anything?
He took all my words.
Oh.
Um, but I had the same experience as him, as where like, when we're younger, I remember like playing with like the kitchen and just having more freedom when we were younger. And I still see it till this day at my job. With the younger kids, they have a lot more playtime. And with the older kids, they're just stressed being on the computer all the time. And it's just, you have to learn that, you have to learn this, you have to take this test. And I feel like, and I know it's not the teacher's fault, but I feel like as teachers, we do get to lose that sight of the fun and freedom for the kids.
And do any of y'all want to talk about it? No.
I have a question. Your connections to the class reading, would you go ahead and share those with us right now?
Yes. Where is my notes? Hold on. I wrote them down on my computer. Hold on. I don't want to mess it up. If I click
Maybe
on
if you
something on my computer,
maybe if you like unshare your screen.
okay. I truthfully don't even know where I put it. I typed some notes for it only on my laptop. I don't have it, Dr. Graham.
And either you or Ms. Ramirez can speak to that, or we can go ahead and move on, but I will let you know to definitely add that to the PowerPoint because that is a huge part of the rubric. So telling us about the theory and theorists is one thing, and that's great. That is also part of the rubric, but a very big part of the rubric is your connections to the class reading. If you can speak to us extemporaneously, that would be good and helpful as well.
I wrote everything down.
Okay, and then just some ideas, and even the class can chime in because you mentioned some things about the ability to do hands-on learning, to be able to speak freely. You mentioned test. How do those things weigh in with some of the class readings and things that we've been studying so far?
Well, I know like I can relate to like the standards, like the standards that we've been doing. A lot of them are how the teacher should understand the students' learning and the way they learn best. And I feel like, especially at a young age, kids learn doing things instead of just, sitting down. Yeah, there's different learners as visuals, they're verbal or like hands-on, but I do feel like that relates to the standards a lot.
Okay.
And I know even like now, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Like even now in the other, I remember it was from the other class that we took from your other course last semester. I forgot what the standards were called. It was the pre-K standards, and that I've realized that
Yes.
for like the older kids, there's not a lot of opportunities to do hands-on as much as the little kids. It's more of just paperwork and tests. And with the little kids, you see that a lot, where it's a lot of projects.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramirez. I'm glad you brought that out, and that might be the experience of many of our students. So I'm glad that you have me now in foundations, because for this class, we get to go explore more than just early childhood. We get to go looking at the other age groups. If you would like, this might be a good place to conclude your presentation. I want to be sensitive to the fact that you have to convert this to a YouTube. So we want to make sure that it's well within the time. So whoever is doing the recording, you can feel free to stop recording at this